You know My Chemical Romance? One of the most defining emo post-hardcore bands of the mid-2000s. The ones that came through with that hugely successful and critically acclaimed album, The Black Parade. Often considered one of the greatest concept albums of the previous decade. Yeah, that album reached its 10-year anniversary this year. But as you would probably know, the band had broken up long ago, which did beg the question, how can the anniversary be celebrated if there's no reunion or tour? Why, of course, release a reissue of the album with a bunch of demos, because everybody loves those demos. I've never been interested in listening to demos of songs or rough copies. Maybe occasionally I check out something out of sheer curiosity, but in this case I'm not really that inclined to listen to the musical equivalent of a Steam Greenlight game in its beta stages. Instead, my interest was perked by the covers album that came with each physical copy of this reissue. Mind you, even though I think The Black Parade is a fantastic album, I wasn't really interested in ordering a physical copy of this reissue because it is clearly a cash-in. The record label were clearly in charge of all of this. I don't even think they gave the band a say. The record label just organized this covers album where various artists in this whole post-hardcore emo pop-punk genre would come together and play a whole bunch of different songs from the Black Parade, and the whole thing was obviously their way of squeezing more money, more moolah, more gold doubloons out of a 10-year-old album. Here's an idea, guys. Why not just let the legacy of a legendary album live on in the form of devoted fans who continue to discuss and listen to the Black Parade, instead of getting people hyped up on the internet over a vague trailer, getting people's hopes up for a possible reunion, and then suddenly making some grand reveal that, ta-da, they're just re-releasing that album with a couple of new demos and some covers of your favorite songs that no one actually ever asked for. I haven't even started reviewing some of the covers yet, and already the context of it has sprouted some monumental issues. It's such a disrespect to the original album. It didn't even have to be My Chemical Romance, The Black Parade. It could have been any album at all, and it would have been seen as a pointless cash-in on a popular, critically acclaimed, hugely sensational album. If they had done that for Radiohead's OK Computer, I'd have probably broken a window or something. This covers album, presented by Rock Sound, features artists in the similar vein to My Chemical Romance, like Moose Blood, or Asking Alexandria, or One OK Rock. The one band or artist here that I was quite shocked by was 21 Pilots being included on this track list. But I was intrigued all the same because, 21 Pilots, they have done some pretty good music in the past. It would have been interesting to see their take on a song like Cancer, which is the one they were assigned. But it turns out a lot of the covers on the Rock Sound Presents The Black Parade tend to display the vocal passion of a cheese board. It's literally karaoke the album. Actually, that is the standout flaw in this covers album, musically of course. In general, the biggest flaw is of course how much of a blatant cash-in this covers album is, but musically a lot of these covers feel soulless. Trying to cover songs by My Chemical Romance, which were originally being fronted by Gerard Way with his emotionally potent vocals, having set the bar high already, trying to cover a song by him is kind of a difficult task already, I'll give you that. But it's like some of these artists weren't even trying. It's like they were totally aware that this whole thing was just a complete and utter On the Creeper cover of This Is How It Disappeared, the singing is awful. And I can't even believe that Crown the Empire completely messed up Welcome to the Black Parade, like that. The title track, the grand, epic story of going to see a marching band. And that was my favourite track of the original album, and hearing it delivered so half-heartedly and soullessly just destroys you inside. It's as if these bands that are covering the songs are actually aware that they're being used by the record label as a means of cashing in on this album, which meant a lot to many teenagers growing up listening to My Chemical Romance during the mid-2000s. It had this piece of art and music they could emotionally connect to, and I know that if I was the frontman of a band, and I knew that I was being used as part of this cash cow, I'd struggle to even breathe a word that lived up to the passion delivered from the record I was being paid to butcher. Actually, over to this 21 Pilots cover of the song Cancer. I know a lot of people have been discussing this, whether it's actually as good as the original. I know a lot of people really don't like this, and a lot of people really like it. I am kind of on the fence about it, to be honest. I think it's certainly a fitting twist on the original song, and this one kind of portrays a bit more of that desolate atmosphere. Like Cancer on the original Black Parade was a heart-wrenching ballad by Gerard Way, which was still slightly hopeful. Like, there was a determination there that the character or the narrator would keep trying to fight cancer. And then this 21 Pilots cover sounds like the battle is almost just lost. Like, the battle is starting to take its effect. And it is quite a sad rendition of the song. I do wonder, however, whether it was so necessary to have those vocal effects on Tyler's voice, as well as the repetition of that line, lips are chapped and faded, which makes the song sound very robotic and kind of mechanical and unsettlingly so, as well as the percussion as well, just the very shrill drum beats. You know, I guess I sort of like it. I reckon it's one of the covers here that applies the band's own style to the song they're covering, you know, like a cover is supposed to do. But there are some aspects of this cover, musically, that kind of leave me feeling a little bit uneasy. Or at least compared to everything else on this compilation, this cover is marginally more acceptable than Asking Alexandria covering Famous Last Words. The outright worst tracks on here, however, which are just the pinnacle of just shitty karaoke, are easily House of Wolves, Mama, and Teenagers. All of those three tracks are distastefully made to be weirdly cheerful and unfittingly bright, and when you consider the heavy subject matter of those songs, it just does not work. I don't know how they had the stray brain cell or two that built up this idea of shoehorning breakbeats into the song Mama. Mama, we're all gonna die. Mama, we're all... Or how they turned Teenagers, one of the catchiest songs on the original record about teenage angst, being dirty and hard-hitting with its very explicit chorus and heavy subject matter. I don't know how they turned that into something that sounded like a Christmas song. Wow. You can't make this up. You have to hear this. Like, I'm teenagers scared, believing shit out of me. They could care less as long as someone will bleed. Oh, teenagers scared, they're living shit out of me. They could care less as long as someone will bleed. Chrissy Costanza's vocals do not match the song at all, and that is mostly due to the horrific choice of instrumentation on here. This covers compilation is genuinely one of the most displeasing methods of honouring a seminal album I've ever heard. Not that I've heard many albums with this many decisions that were made in purely bad taste, thanks to a cash-hungry and coin-thirsty record label. It annoys me that this had to be a thing, let alone a very badly put-together thing. This compilation gets a 2 out of 10, easily.